What if you had instant analytics on your PDP images and a faster way to create content that performs better? That's what we're diving into in today's episode, how top brands and retailers are using analytics and automation to stay ahead across retail media and the digital shelf. It's Rapid helps teams scale smarter. They analyze image performance, they help you create optimized assets for retail media networks and the digital shelf, and they integrate directly with PIM and DAM systems for seamless execution. Brands like Pepsi, Mondelez, and Instacart use its Rapid to go beyond basic tools to uncover gaps in PDP and retail media performance by analyzing the images themselves, not just the count. Streamline banner creation across hundreds of formats for Amazon Ads, Walmart Connect, and other retail and social platforms, and launch high-performing content more than 80% faster across e-commerce and marketing channels. If you're buried in manual work or struggling to keep up, this episode and It's Rapid will show you a better way. Visit itsrapid.ai to learn more.
Welcome to Beyond the Shelf with Dave Feinlieb. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. We publish new episodes every Tuesday morning, so be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Dave Feinlieb.
Welcome back to Beyond the Shelf. Today we're joined by Jordan Witmer, Managing Director of Retail Media and Consulting at Salt Media. With a strong background in CPG and demand planning, Jordan now leads unified commerce strategies for clients across major retail media networks, as well as up-and-coming platforms in grocery and convenience. He's spoken often about the budget gaps, data silos, and creative challenges that hold back retail media performance, and why regional and C-store networks have a unique opportunity to stand out. Today, we'll talk about aligning creative and data, unlocking budget through transparency, and what smart creative-first execution looks like in a fragmented media landscape. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Amazing intro. Thank you for that. I appreciate all the kind words. Yeah, psyched to be here.
You got it. Well, we're excited to have you. Take us back. How'd you get your start in the space?
Like most others, by accident. I started my career in supply chain actually with Black & Decker, and I had this feeling that I wanted to get into marketing. I didn't know what that meant, no idea. A couple years out of school, and I got the opportunity to interview for a marketing role. I didn't get it. I was trying to go run the DeWalt account at Sears at the time, which was already dying. I knew it was dying, but it was still a huge account. Sounded fun. And my consolation prize was, hey, you're kind of good in Excel and with numbers. Do you want to work on Amazon? From there, the rest is history for me. So I got to run or work on the DeWalt brand, which was super exciting. Black and yellow power tools for anybody that's unfamiliar, across every e-commerce outlet, and as well as doing promotional planning and how we deal with price matching across retailers, and got to learn kind of the ins and outs of e-commerce retail from a operations standpoint. Then I'm from Central Pennsylvania, and we needed to move home, I think is the short version.
I hear they have chocolate there.
Best dairy cows in the country. That's why you make your chocolate here. So I was fortunate to be able to connect with some folks at Hershey and join a fairly small at the time but fast growing digital team at Hershey. Got to work on the Target and Walmart digital businesses, and again happened to be there when Roundel happened and when WMG at the time happened, and I remember sitting in that role and going, oh man, I'm spending a lot of money now, and nowhere in my background is there advertising or media and I've got to ask people what CPM means. This doesn't seem smart. And I was fortunate that when I raised my hand with that question, the leadership team at Hershey took me under their wing a bit and said, "Hey, good question. We probably should spend a little bit of time and energy figuring that out." And I got pulled into Hershey's media COE to help drive their growth and understanding and strategy across retail media. And again, really, really, really fun. You can never have a bad day working on chocolate and working in candy. It's a great space. I got approached with an opportunity to go do kind of the same thing. At the time, it was Johnson & Johnson Consumer Health, but would ultimately become Kenvue. Similar conversation of, we want to transform how we go to market in retail media, bring in some outside expertise. We've worked across a bunch of different networks, kind of know the ins and outs. Do you want to come help us build what this is going to be? And I made the jump and had a great just about 5 years with J&J and the transition over to Kenvue. And then we kind of got to the point where I'm looking at what I really get enjoyment from doing and what I'm uniquely capable of, and sitting there saying, I don't think brands are going to need a VP of retail media. There's not really a runway for this thing that I love doing. So I set out for, cool, then what am I going to do? If it's not going to be just jump to another brand and do the same thing, what is it? And called a couple of mentors that are really generous with their time and energy with me. And I got coached and introduced to the idea of, hey, do you want to build a retail agency? Because I had come to this point of, man, retail media just isn't working with a lot of the bigger agencies I've seen. Not their fault. They've been exposed to a lot of the ideas that they need to be exposed to around how to work with a product portfolio and what that means in terms of developing a media plan and what's acceptable performance and what's not for this item versus this item, or how do you translate a pack type growth strategy into a search buy, and all those kinds of things that it would kind of grind on you as a brand side leader. So yeah, I set out to find a place to build a retail media agency that spoke that language. So now I'm fortunate to be building that, and I'm with a group called Salt Media now, part of Salt XC. We've been really, really fortunate to have incredible growth in the early years of the company. Outstanding clients. I think at this point, a couple years in a row, the second fastest growing agency in the world, according to Adweek. So we've got awesome momentum. The people I work with are incredible, and yeah, I'm thrilled that I found a place to kind of, we're going to build the new thing. We're going to build a retail media agency the way that the brand side wishes their retail media agency would operate.
So if I read it right, we don't have to predict the future. We just need to follow you and know where you are with your successes on being in the right place at the right time. Wherever you are, that's where we need to be next. So I love it. What a great journey. Tell us, if you would, just briefly on the different retailers. You were very time with Amazon, with Target, Walmart, lots of different big channels in the market. Any learnings, rules of the road for our listeners?
Yeah, I think the key for me is always, how intentional are you being, and how intentional can you be when, if I'm interpreting your question the right way, of how do you work across all these different networks and decide who you should spend time with and who you shouldn't.
Yeah.
I think the key is I see a lot of brands, a lot of advertisers fall down in, they ask the question first, what retail network should I be working with, before they can answer the question of, why am I running retail media? And I found if you answer the first one of, okay, I'm running retail media because I want to drive my share of the digital shelf or build digital distribution. Well, then you got to work with everybody. You don't really have a choice. If you want to be everywhere, you've got to be everywhere. Now, if you're,
Right.
let's say, Hershey, and you're saying, well, my specific reason that I'm looking at retail audiences, I want to know who bought a grill in the spring because my gut tells me that they're going to be spending time outside cooking and they might be interested in s'mores with their family. Then that leads us down a path of, well, who's got the largest maybe market share from a retail side? Who's got the biggest, most appropriate audience of people who bought grills and tents or what have you? So it's kind of a wishy-washy answer of, hey, you might have to work with everybody, or you might only have to work with one, but it pushes back to the, like, let's not do retail media for retail media's sake. Let's do it to advance an objective.
And now switching gears on the agency side, you now get to work with lots of brands and lots of networks. How's it going? What's the latest when it comes to retail media?
Yeah, it's still fun. I can tell you that, and it's still complex, and there's still, it's still a space. I was drawn to it, and you kind of heard it in my early history. Like, I was drawn here because it changes so quickly, and that makes it fun. If you're okay with the volatility, it's still changing that quickly, which is great. What's going on? I think there's a couple of, I'll call it, interesting trends in the space right now. One, I see a lot of time and energy going into agentic commerce and how's AI going to play here. And every conversation that I go and have, it ultimately comes back to, as a brand, you're probably going to be fine if you have a relevant product and you focus enough time and energy in getting the details around your content done the right way, and you've got recent and relevant reviews happening, and it's still the basics that are going to underpin this.
Yeah.
But there's certainly a lot of distraction out there around, well, what's the future going to be, and do I have to adjust how I work today? And largely the answer's been no, but it takes up a lot of space.
And then tactically, what kind of tools are you focused on? What's working? Maybe as equally interesting, what's not working?
Tactically is fun when we get into how you actually operate. And this is probably one of the hotter takes that I've got out there in the retail media space is, I'll push past tactical, like what we actually activate on, to measurement a little bit and how you work. And I'm really one of the few folks that would be out there saying you can still use ROAS as an operational lever. It is not a popular refrain. It's really easy to go onto a stage or onto a podcast and say ROAS is dead, long live the MMM, and there's some truth to that. But I see that tool being, I'll call it, wielded differently by different folks. So that metric, I almost hate saying it because it feels like a 4-letter word. It's often used in a aggregated, leveled up, I don't know, is it $3 or $4, and is that good context? And yeah, that's not useful. It's not useful in the same way that if you would ask somebody what the frequency is on their media buys in another channel, and they tell you it's 5, and averaged up, they're saying we're crushing it. That's great. Under the surface, there's 100 people that got 10,000 impressions a month, and there's 1 million people that got 1, and it got averaged to this thing. So I think return on ad spend's got kind of pushed into a weird corner of taking the blame for a lot of folks not really knowing how to use the tools. It's certainly a blunt force object. It's a blunt force method. It's more hammer and chisel than it is jackhammer. I wouldn't recommend trying to run your operation with that as a core tenet if you're in the business of clearing large fields of rubble and getting it out of the way as fast and messy as possible. And as long as it's done, it's fine.
So let me ask that a different way. So ROAS used properly, how do I put it to work in the right way?
Yeah, I think this is kind of the essence of what I have set out to do, and kind of how we operate our practice. Is the ROAS metric as we use it is a measure of efficiency, of how efficiently are we balancing performance and maybe maximizing revenue inside of the constraints of what our brand identity is, or what our brand growth goal is. Used properly means you've got to put in a ton more effort than you're used to in the upfront. Nobody wants to hear exactly how I go into all this, but there are based on how profitable each item in your portfolio is, what that product's growth strategy is for you, how aggressive you want to win share with that, in what audiences, against what keywords, and what shelves matter, and setting all of these constraints that flow out of a brand strategy allow you to build a kind of a matrix look at, well, for item A on shelf B, this is an appropriate level for us based on what our stated strategy is, our available budget is, how well things are performing, not performing historically. If you build it really granularly, which is difficult to do, it's hard work. It's
hard work. Yeah.
If you're not trying to be a craftsman in this space, and you're trying to be a stack it high, let it fly type of advertiser, then you probably shouldn't use it, because it's going to lead you down a dangerous path.
But if you do the work at the item level, it sounds like, then it could really pay off. And then this metric will make sense, because it's being used in a very granular way.
Exactly. Yeah. And the trouble is, well, if you run a 100 or 1,000 SKU portfolio,
how do you do that?
How do you do that? And how do you do it in a way that's efficient? Because you can't hand that job off to a bunch of kids a couple years out of school with a playbook and say, here, go ahead and set 3,000 performance targets. I think that's what's exciting about the advances in call it vibe coding, and the ability we all now have to turn processes into automation, has kind of unlocked that this is possible now at scale, and it's a heck of a lot faster than some other methodologies.
This episode of Beyond the Shelf is brought to you by It's Rapid. It's Rapid is the platform Pepsi, Mondelez, Instacart, and hundreds of other leading brands and retailers use to build personalized content at scale. Whether that's images, videos, or product descriptions for their product detail pages, shoppable videos or banners for their digital ad campaigns, or sell sheets for sales enablement, brands that use It's Rapid are able to produce high-quality, on-brand content on average more than 80% faster than category competitors. To find out more, please visit itsrapid.ai.
Tell us about the creative side of things. What are you seeing work? Are people experimenting with new formats? What's the latest in that area?
That was one of the things that I was fortunate to be taught very early. Was at worst, creative is 50% of your media performance. It's likely more like 75. And what we're seeing is the name of the game is fit for platform, and we're finding that the days of put a ton of time and energy into a 30-second, a 15-second, get something really cut perfectly, and we're going to go after one channel, it doesn't fly as much because we're sitting in this evolution point between the process being we're going to define our audiences, we're going to build creative for those audiences, and hope that the creative that we sent to that audience works, and shifted more towards we're going to build creative to those for who we think we need to reach. And the way a lot of the platforms work today, if your creative is good, you will get your scaled reach out of it, and you'll reach the people you need to reach. It'll find its home. And what that means is constant iteration, getting it mostly right. Certainly I'm not talking about pushing tonnage of AI slop out the door, but we found that the game is maybe changing a bit in the sense of how quickly can you generate fit for platform creative off of a singular campaign idea versus define your channel, then go build creative for it.
So creative first, then channel.
Campaign first, then channel.
Campaign first.
I think that's
channel.
One of the interesting conversations that I've had with a couple of folks in the space that work at some of the biggest brands in the world. And the overarching theme I hear from those folks are we've kind of gone a little bit far down the rabbit hole into how do I build a great YouTube campaign around this event, and we haven't stayed close enough to what does my brand stand for from an overarching standpoint. How do I build a campaign that will last multiple years and can fit into multiple formats and is adaptable and reflective of what this brand really is. You can probably take that filter and go look at who's winning today. The folks that are really good at that tend to be the ones that are winning.
Great insights. I love it. So ROAS, yes, if used the right way, granularity and looking at the portfolio, and then really thinking a little differently about creative and thinking about it'll find the audience if you've built it and really thought through the brand and the brand values as a long-term proposal. So these are great insights. Talk to us about your day-to-day. I've got the rapid rundown coming up, but what does it look like? Do you meet with customers? Are you working on campaigns? You've got a big team or a small team. How does that all come together?
Yeah, we're lean. So when we're talking about running retail media with Salt, you're running retail media with me.
Yeah.
And that's by design, where we've set out to build this team and this operation around really senior practitioners enabled by automation and some custom tech built behind us. We're really fortunate that we employ a full stack development team as a media agency, which I get to tap into when I have something that I can go build a process and a product around to solve for a client instead of hiring 3 more people. And what that means is I run a really lean operation in terms of people, and we deliver pretty incredible results. But it's also really fun for me because I get to stay closer to everybody we work with in each campaign. And I did not expect that leading a practice in an agency would mean that I'm still looking at the strategy for a specific food brand at Albertsons and what does our digital shelf presence look like, and what was the competitive move that happened in yogurt last week. And it's from a day-to-day perspective, I think when I get that question, most people are probably a little bit surprised that we're still in the weeds a bit, but I think that's where we talked about granularity and getting into it. That's where the differences are made, and that's what's still so fun for me.
What did they say about Steve Jobs? He was so focused on the details and he could see the big picture. It was something like that. I'm sure it was said better than I could have said it. But yeah, I think exactly right. You want to really see what's going on. And there's only one way to do that, which is to stay close to things. So really great. Well, this has been super informative. One last question before our rapid rundown. AI, we're seeing it everywhere. I'm sure it'll probably even be out of date by the time the episode airs. But what's your current take on things?
I think the industry is kind of seen through it a little bit from what I can tell. Like I'm seeing a really nice pivot from the most people I talk to from, yeah, we're kind of getting out of the phase where your board just says, hey, go do AI things, and getting closer to what's the actual problem you're trying to solve with it. It is certainly a game changing, I don't want to call it a development set or continuous set of developments that is changing the way that people work. What I would just say, like, our take on it, our stance, my stance is it's not going to turn people who don't get it into people that get it. It's going to overpower people that get it, that lean in. And I think that's probably mostly what we're going to see in terms of who makes hay, who drives shared growth and grows their businesses around it. They already had a good idea. They already had a good angle, a point of differentiation, and it's gasoline. It's not the idea itself.
Yeah, this is great. Great insights. All right, our rapid rundown. These are a few fast-paced questions, your quick thoughts. First off, an underrated retail media network or a retail format for creative impact.
For creative impact. The underrated format for creative impact to me is in-store. It's often it's like, what can we get on a cardboard quickly that kind of fits what the brand stands for, but can get done fast and is kind of good enough, and it'll work and it'll get printed and set up. What I'm seeing, what we do really well, and what I think folks that don't work with us do, that are growing, are doing really well in store, is actually spending the time to create an experience you'll walk over to. It flies a little bit in the face of a lot of the clean store stuff that we've all lived through in the last 10, 15 years. And it's somewhat a reaction to AI. It's interesting. I've seen the resurgence of physical experiences as a real differentiator in a sea of AI generated content and imagery in the digital world. So I think really underrated what can be done in a physical space inside of a lot of retailers is going to be a big deal.
Your favorite ad feature or placement you've used recently?
Oh man, it's probably one of those, but favorite feature that we've started to use recently is call it inventory aware media. This tends to be as much of a retail data partnership as it is a retail audience partnership, but we found, like, a lot of the groups that we work with, whether you're launching a new product or you're selling in seasonally wrapped packaging and things of that sort, there is an immense power to tying where and what media formats you run and at what volume you run to where is your product physically. And I know this is largely a digital conversation, but that's the one that we've now used probably on a good majority of the programs we work in, is how do we better tie the physical inventory and inventory flows and supply chain data into how we activate media. And it's worked. So I would keep putting it on plans.
So you are combining supply chain with your marketing skill set. That's fantastic. And how do you like to reset after a long week?
This is interesting because it changes for me all the time. I'm a unabashed ADHD diagnosed individual, and what that means is we pick up hobbies and dive really deeply into them for usually less than a year. We pick up different things, so I'll answer in the form of at the moment. Learn how to fish. It's an interesting shut off and a transition from staring at screens and getting really granular into, can I go find a trout stream that I can't get reception in and just be there and reset, away from screens, away from everything. And yeah, that's been a big one for me recently.
So hard to do, but so needed. Jordan, that's been a great conversation here on Beyond the Shelf. What's the best way for our listeners to reach you?
Yeah, this is a fun one. So shoot me an email, jordan.witmer@ilovesalt.com.
That's a great email address. We'll put it in the show notes. Jordan, thanks again for joining us. I hope you'll come back. I learned a ton, and it was great talking with you.
Absolutely. It was fun. Thanks, David.
That's it for this week's episode of Beyond the Shelf. If you enjoy the show, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It really helps us grow. And feel free to share us with your colleagues so they too can hear weekly perspectives from the brightest minds in e-commerce. You can also check us out on LinkedIn, where we post clips from each episode, share Dave's takes on breaking industry news, and much more. Beyond the Shelf is a production of It's Rapid. Our host is Dave Feinlieb, and our producers are Sean Levy-Ashvili and Jake Musiker. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shelf.